Good morning, everyone. Or is it afternoon? What day is it? Happy day 4 is to people. Some of us day 4, but what a pleasure today. We've got Mark Hartmann, founder of the Aloha Award, avid waterman, environmentalist. How many things can I say about you? He's also a big believer of the power of the healing powers of the ocean. So you are amongst good company, Mark. And Greg, all the way from South Africa. Greg Bertish, who is a founder of The Little Optimist, to name only one thing he has created. I hope you share more today. He is a survivor, and he also happens to be the newly appointed chairman of the Aloha Award. Welcome, legends. How are you?
Great, happy to be here. I wish I'd, come to my senses and worn flip-flops like the rest of you, but I'm from San Francisco, or live in San Francisco, so, we wear shoes up there, which is kind of silly, but it's good to be here.
Surf therapy, always. I'm not even wearing them, so it's okay. So this week, we have talked about a lot of things. A lot of recurring topics come up, such as fundraising, such as writing grants, such as doing research to write grants in order to get the grants. How do NGOs operate without funding? This is such a big, hot topic. Who in this room, show of hands, just are concerned about funding? Keeps us up at night, unfortunately. Where do we get the money? How do we get the money? What do we do with the money? Again, topics from this past week. So perhaps it's no surprise to anyone in this room, surfers, surf therapy practitioners, none of us enjoy asking for money. I don't know why. We got to learn to ask for money. While we have had some extraordinary speakers over the past several days, and again this morning, thank you to this morning's groups, both of them, they were incredible. We haven't yet had any speakers who are recognizing individuals in the global surfing community, and in doing so, awarding them some money and really fantastic prizes along the way. So thank you for being here. Let's get into it. All right, Mr. Mark Hartmann, how are you? Tell us a little bit about yourselves, and please tell us ultimately what inspired you to create the Aloha Award.
Well, first of all, Kris, thanks for being here. Thanks for the opportunity, and having listened to a couple sessions today, I wish I'd been here for the entire thing. That's definitely something I'll rectify in the coming years. So just very quickly, I was born and raised in Panama. My mom is Brazilian, my dad's American, and on all sides, literally and figuratively, I've been surrounded by the ocean. And the ocean was just something I always took for granted, whether I was surfing or spearfishing or kite surfing, all of those things. And as I got older and started traveling around the world as a surfer and for work, but especially as a surfer, one of the things that really struck me was how few people that were native to the country that I was traveling to were actually in the water. In many instances, people didn't even know how to swim. Locals didn't know how to swim. And they certainly, in most cases, didn't have access to the ocean. They didn't surf. So, that sort of bugged me. And I guess that bugging just got, greater and greater and greater as time passed. In my professional life, I've always been involved in the world of economics and finance, and really the intersection of investing and economic development, impact investing. And so I really believe, in the power of capitalism to do good, positive things. So it can happen. I think it was a combination of those two things. The fact that I'd always been around the ocean, that it was something that was always available to me, and at the same time not available to so many. And then knowing that as an investor and having invested and helped scale businesses, that having a benevolent, value-added investor who can provide capital, maybe a little bit of guidance, some technical support, can be really catalytic in helping scale organizations. And so I think it was about 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I went to South Africa. My wife and I love Cape Town, and we were in South Africa, and I met this guy, Greg Bertish, and he, was like, he was like a serial entrepreneur, but instead of creating companies, he was creating these amazing organizations, and he'll talk a little bit about that. And I saw his organization at work, and I'll let him talk more about what his organization does, but in essence, it was using the power of the ocean to really heal kids and make kids feel important and give them self-esteem. And it was sort of an aha moment. It's the aha moment that all of you guys have had over and over and over again. And I thought, how can I take this sense of guilt and loss that I have about other people not experiencing the ocean? How can I take my experience as a professional in economic development, and how can I take this inspirational aha moment and actually do something? And so I asked myself, well, what would that something look like? And I thought, well, I could start another organization, but there are so many organizations out there that are already doing incredible work. Why try and replicate something that's probably already there? Maybe I can help these organizations that exist in a constructive way. And I thought, well, what do they need? And talking to Greg, I got a little bit of a semblance or a little bit of a sense of what they might need. And it became pretty obvious. I mean, we're all humans. What do humans want? Humans want to be seen. If you're doing work, in many cases, operating under the radar for no compensation, being recognized is a pretty awesome thing. Like, we see you. That's the first thing. The second thing is money. Obviously, I think Kris alluded to the fact that especially for small organizations, and especially for small organizations operating, in developing countries where there's no government infrastructure, there's no one to write a grant to. So money really is important. So I thought, okay, well, recognition is important. Money is important. And then, the third thing that I thought of, because I was looking at Greg, running himself ragged with all of his nonprofit organizations in South Africa.
Still.
Yes, still. And the third thing that struck me was maybe, people can use a break. And when I say a break, I mean taking a little time away from, I don't want to call it a grind because it's your passion, but taking a little bit of time away from that, get some perspective. And I thought, okay, well, this is cool. I'll take them on a surf trip. I know it's crazy, but they're in the water all day. They're teaching surfing, but how often is it about them? So can I create an experience that's about them? So recognition, reward, financial support. And then the fourth piece of it that I thought I really wanted to bring to the table was what I had done as an investor and as a board member in my world of investing in venture capital, which is how can I be this benevolent, helpful presence and help bring services or some sort of real capability to these smaller organizations. I may not be able to do it, but I can be a catalyst, I can be a bridge to a service provider or an expert or a volunteer or something. So it was really the confluence of trying to bring those four things to the table that inspired me to create the Aloha Award. So for those of you who don't know, what does the Aloha Award do? Just very simply, following on in those four things, we find people from around the world, and Greg will talk a little bit about how we do that. And we select 5 finalists, one of whom is a runner-up and one of whom is a winner. And we give them a cash prize. We give the runner-up a cash prize and each of the other finalists a cash prize. And that cash is, of course, designated to support an organization of their choice, typically their own organization, which is awesome. And it doesn't have to be a 501c3. I mean, I'd just send you a Venmo, no questions asked. And so that's the first part of it. And then the second part of it is that the winner of the Aloha Award gets an all-expenses-paid trip to Namotu in Fiji, which is my favorite place on the planet. So I figure it's probably going to be a favorite place for many other people. And they get a week, where it's just all about them. where they're celebrated, where they get to surf whenever they want, eat whatever they want, drink whatever they want, dive whenever they want, et cetera, et cetera. And, and what I've found in taking Aloha Award winners to Namotu over the years is how much they needed the break. I've been really moved by how much emotional energy you men and women put into your organizations, and having the ability to have a reset, even if it's only for a week, and to have that week be about you, and to have a week to think about what do I want to do next. It's really incredible to watch the transformation of these Aloha Award winners over the course of that week, from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. And they typically leave much more inspired, much more rested, and frankly, just ready to get on with it. So that's the second piece of it. And then the third piece of it is something that is in development. So we recently just landed our first corporate sponsor for the Aloha Award, and we're trying to figure out how to spend the money. And part of the reason I'm here is obviously to get to know some of you and better understand what that might look like. What is it that we should be doing? And hopefully we'll come back to that over the course of this session a little bit.
How do we clone you? We need many, many, many financial investors thinking that way. I love too that it started sort of what a lot of us say is if you can't, if you don't see it, it's hard to imagine it or be it. And the fact that you saw these children not being able to do that, and obviously surf therapy programs around the globe are prioritizing the most underserved programs, and in which case giving them the means and access. So the fact that you saw that and it has turned into what it has turned into, it's really inspiring. Thank you. Greg, I'm going to try to do this without getting emotional. Some people know I get very emotional. You have, how do I say this? You had some pivotal transitions that you have negotiated with a lot of grace. And I'm not going to pretend to know what you've been through. But what I can say is you're one of the most positive, energetic, happiest people I have met. I don't know how you're doing that, but would you mind sharing some insight into your journey, and then ultimately, how did you become the chairman of the Aloha Award?
Thanks, Kris, and hi everyone. I've been honored to. I'm honored to be sitting here, first of all, with our esteemed founder here, and with Kris, who's actually a finalist last year in the Aloha Awards.
Did I go to Namotu? No. Just kidding. I'm grateful.
Keep trying. Don't never give up, Kris. Never give up.
That sounded very ungrateful to me. I'm grateful.
I've been incredibly inspired by the week that I've spent with some of you already here, and I've chatted to a number of you, and just this journey of being here has enlightened me, and it has injected me with positivity and inspiration. So first of all, huge thanks to everyone sitting here. So I grew up, and I still live in Cape Town, South Africa. I was an insecure, bullied, shy child who thought they would amount to nothing. I was good at nothing, and if I hadn't have found the ocean and surfing and sailing at a young age, I don't know whether I would be here now. So the ocean saved me. And later on in life, while traveling and following my passion, traveling in the tropics, I picked up an undiagnosed tropical bacteria. And it went undiagnosed for a year. And by the time they found out, and I found out that there was something really wrong with me, it had eaten away my aortic heart valve, and there was literally nothing left, and my heart had swollen to 40% its normal size, and they rushed me in at the age of 31 for open heart surgery. And there were complications. I spent a long time in hospital. In fact, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but over the next 5 or 6 years, I had 2 open heart surgeries because this undiagnosed bacteria kept coming back and attacking my heart and eating away my heart valves. So I spent over 200 days in hospital fighting for my life. I had 2 open heart surgeries. It then came back again, and I spent 90 days lying in hospital on drips fighting this unknown bacteria. while I was there, and while I was in ICU at one stage, I had that aha moment. I had that epiphany. I lay there and I lay there feeling so sorry for myself. Why me? All those questions, all those cliches. And I looked over to my left, and there was this 85-year-old man lying there. And he had the ventilator in his mouth. He'd also had a heart operation, and he was fighting for his life. And I was feeling sick, and I was on death's door. Like, I knew that I was so close to death. And I just thought, why me? Sure, when I'm 85 years old, 100%, I'd be lying there. Why me at 30? And I felt so sorry for myself. And then I looked to my right. And on my right lay a 4-month-old baby. And that baby was having his second heart operation. And I went in a flash of a moment, I went from feeling so sorry for myself to actually feeling lucky. And saying, how lucky am I that I've had the opportunity to live to 30 years old, where this baby has had no chance whatsoever. And at that moment, I said to myself, if I survive this, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to help children. I'm going to help children because I'm going to get out of this because I love the ocean. And all I could think about, I didn't have children then, I wasn't married then, I didn't have a significant other, but I had the ocean. And the power of that, not actually being able to go in it, the power of that got me out, and 100% I survived because of that. All I wanted to do was literally walk in the ocean again, ride a wave again, feel the wind in my face. And I strived for that, and eventually I survived and I overcame it, and I realized that the reason I survived was I had this passion. And these kids that I met in South Africa, in under-resourced hospitals, in terrible dire strait conditions and facilities, they had nothing to live for. So when they got sick, or when they were almost dying, they just gave up. And they do give up daily, because they've got nothing to go back to. They come from broken homes, from abusive homes. They end up, even if they do leave the hospital, they leave, a shadow of themselves, often disabled. And they've got nothing to live for. And I thought, you know what, if we can just create something to make these kids live for it, get out of hospital, and not only survive, but thrive because of something. And I wanted to just introduce them to the ocean and find a passion. And that's how we started our organization called the Little Optimist Foundation. And we started going into hospitals, delivering fluffy toys, doing inspiration days, doing movies, inspirational movies, bringing other survivors into the hospitals, showing kids that they too, even if they've had an amputation, they can survive and go on and get a prosthetic leg and represent the country in adaptive surfing or find another way. And that changed everything. And since then, we've scaled that, and we paint hospitals now. We paint hospitals and clinics and schools and under-resourced facilities around South Africa, and we create a safe space, a beautiful place to actually get better in, to actually learn in and educate themselves in, to want to go to every morning or to want to wake up to, instead of walking into these broken down facilities that they've got no inspiration and desire to go into or come out of. And so we do that, and now we are using, I've used surfing therapy for years without even knowing there was a name for it, and pulled adults and kids out of hospitals and used it. And now we've launched, we think, the first of its kind sailing therapy academy in Cape Town, South Africa. And I'm absolutely honored to be here learning from everyone here, because what you are all doing and what ISTO has done and what we're going to do with the Aloha Award is a model for so many other sports, for so many under-resourced places, under-resourced sports. And also it's a wake-up call to all those sports. I mean, look at surfing. We're like a tiny little drop in the ocean, really. Where's baseball? Where is football? Where is soccer internationally? What are they giving back? What is the Olympics doing? Those guys, I think, are going to be looking at us. And we are the ones here who are way ahead of the curve. And we're going to be the inspiration to hopefully lead and show other sports how to give back and how to use sport and the ocean as therapy.
It's so powerful, and it pains me a little bit that you started that off with, I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know anything. Like, you didn't yet know what you knew how to do, because now it does everything. Mark, okay, so,
Can we just go back to Greg and ask him how he got connected to the Aloha
oh
Award?
yeah, he didn't answer that. Sorry. Somebody's tired.
So, yeah, so I'm honored, obviously, to be connected and to be part of it. It's absolutely amazing. Mark did mention how he found me in Africa, poor African child, trying to do good, and use me as, as an example. No, so, I mean, that's literally how it happened, and we started talking, and he has been incredibly supportive of what I do and been a mentor to me. And I think, the idea is to scale that, and I'm grassroots. I started grassroots. I started with you guys. I've walked the walk. I still walk the walk. I understand from an under-resourced country how hard it is to take something. And not to say that it's hard in a resource country like America, but the stepping stones are there already here, which is amazing. And you can talk to a local government. You can call 911 and the police arrive. We don't have that. So, I understand it, and I think the empathy and what I've got is, and I bring to the Aloha Awards, is that I've walked that path, and I can connect with some of our winners, and not only the winners, but the nominees, and those people that are going to come through, and hopefully we're going to build these nominees, and we're going to not only be able to award the winners and the top 5 or 10, we're going to actually be able to connect and connect with them and be real and understand them and help them right from the bottom up and get them to grow and become a nominee and a top 5 and a winner one day, so that they can go to Nomoto and be recognized.
Wait, I can be nominated again?
There's no limit on repeat
Is this about me? No.
nominations.
It's not. Okay, so I love that. Mark, you have a room full of people. You have dozens of people all over the world, and if any of you are still awake watching, thank you. We love you. They are essentially all connected to the ocean. They're all connected to surfing. So what would be your dream to amplify your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is basically one word, which is more. We want to be able to give more money to more people in more geographies across more modalities. So far, I mean, we've had finalists from lots of different walks of life within the surf therapy community, a couple of people outside of the surf therapy arena, mainly on the environmental side. But yeah, I mean, we haven't, just by way of example, I think we've gotten maybe 1 or 2 nominations out of Europe. We've gotten 0 nominations out of Asia. So I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to expand our reach. And that's one of the reasons why, like I said, we're here, to get the word out, to let you guys know that we exist, and obviously that we see you. The second thing that we're doing is raising more money. As I mentioned, we just landed our first corporate sponsorship. He hasn't told me the amount yet, but it's going to be substantial.
Say his name.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm not going to call him out.
No, so our corporate sponsor is it's called Plaza Home Mortgage Corporation, the mortgage company. The 2 co-founders are both surfers, and they're longtime. One of them is a longtime friend, and when I was on the Motu last July, our last 2021 winner, Kris Dennis, was there for a week, and he was sick for a couple days, maybe 2 or 3 days, so he didn't really get a full chance to enjoy the 1-week experience. And so at the end of the week, Kevin Para, the founder of Plaza Home Mortgage, walked up to him and said, "How would you like to stay for another week?"
Woo! Thank you, Kevin.
And he was so stoked. So, and then Kevin's like, this Aloha Award thing, these people, I didn't know anything about it, and this Kris Dennis guy is amazing. Are all of your other winners like this? And I said, yeah, they're all just stellar human beings. And he said, how can I help? How can I get involved? And I said, well, you're rich.
And that's how you do it.
Okay, I lied. Some surfers are okay with asking for money.
How about you give us some money? He said, great. We give away money every year. We've given away money to the Breast Cancer Foundation and to Foundation X, Y, and Z. He's like, I surf. This is a great cause. Consider it done. So, yeah, I don't think the next one will be that easy. But negotiating on Nomotu, good place to negotiate. So yeah, and then the third thing, so we talked about increasing our reach so that we can find more people. We talked about raising money so that we can do more good. And then the third thing really is building the capacity, well, first of all, listening to what you guys have to say about what is truly needed, what services are needed. So I'm a big fan of listening, so please come to me and to Craig and to Kris as well, since she's now a judge on the Aloha Award.
Good luck.
So yeah, come to me and tell us what types of things your organization and other organizations might need, so that we can build the internal capacity, capability, or like I said, either directly or by working with third-party providers to get the one or two or three services out to these smaller organizations that really need those services. So yeah, it's more reach, it's more money, and it's more capability.
Good answer. There's lots of that in this room. I'm happy to say that. Over the 5 years that you've been doing this, you've already mentioned Kris Dennis from Trinidad. They've had some extraordinary winners, including Mike from Costa Rica, and you've had Tasha from South Africa. So let's get into that a little bit. Since I didn't win, I don't know what the answer is here. Greg, can you... I sound better. I'm not. Can you dive in? Dive in deeper, truly. Dive in deeper, please, to the winners, the finalists, the nominees. Who are they? What do they have in common?
One word, selflessness. And I think that is the key, because that is why we're here, and that's why the Aloha Award is here, because most of us, maybe all of us here, are selfless. And I've walked that path, so I know it's you put everyone else first, and often to the detriment of your own income, your own family, your own mental health. And that is pure selflessness. And to recognize, to take someone who isn't asking for any recognition, who isn't asking for anything for themselves, very good at asking for other people and helping other people, but nothing for themselves. And that's why this is so unique and amazing, because there are very few awards that say, you know what, we're going to recognize you. We realize that if you're not there, your organization won't be there. If your mental health is not 100%, if you're not happy, if you're not passionate still, if you lose that passion, if you lose your drive, everything suffers and it all falls apart. So how can we help you? And that's where obviously money helps. But what Mark's idea is fantastic, is to take people away and put them in a place that they would never go to. And we've had winners who actually don't want to take the money, don't want to take the trip. They've actually said, can I take the money from the trip and give it to my organization? And you all know that feeling.
2 so far, actually, 2 out of the 5.
And the answer is a blatant no, you can't. And sometimes that's what we need to hear. In fact, there's no one else who's going to do that, so that's what we do. Because we recognize that. And I think what happens then is, like coming to an event like this, you get put in a place where you're out of your zone, out of what you have to do and do naturally, and you develop in totally different ways, and you become inspired, and you become optimistic, and you leave there again as a far better person, a far better therapist, a far better person to run your organization and represent your organization. And I'm sure they're going to do studies on this afterwards and find that the winners and those that have been helped will go so much further, and their ripples will turn into much bigger waves. So quickly going back to the winners, we've had amazing winners, and it's become incredibly hard. In fact, this year was the hardest year we've ever had. We couldn't even whittle down to 5 nominees, the top 5, because the judges were so hung on these amazing people. And it is so emotional, because when you dig deeply into what you all do, and hundreds of other people do, and you read their stories, to choose 1 or 2, and push someone aside and say, we can't help everyone. It is so hard.
Maybe tell Mike's story, if you...
Yeah, Mike Castro, he lives in Costa Rica, and it's grassroots there. I mean, he literally was driving around with his wife in a broken down old car, picking kids up. And I think he's a qualified nurse, and he'd given up his nursing. I think he's studying to be a...
Yeah, he's working as a nurse and studying psychology at the same time as he's running his organization.
and he was, just giving everything, no, like putting every cent that he had into helping these children. And when we called him, we had to get who spoke to him. You spoke to him. So each judge gets to actually speak to one of the 5 nominees, and we interview them, and then we play that back to the other judges. And we had to speak to him in Spanish because he doesn't speak English. And to hear his story, it's mind-blowing when you take someone in a situation that's totally under-resourced with no help from anyone. And what this Aloha Award has done, he hasn't been to Nomoto. He's going this year, next year?
Well, he's one of the ones that wanted the money instead. So he ended up, when I said, well, so what are you going to use the money for, Mike? And he said, well, I want to buy a van. I want to buy a van so I can pick up all the kids, and so I can take the kids on surf trips, and so I can start, providing services to other communities. But the van's like $13,000, and the prize is $10,000. And he said, so can I use the Nomotu money to buy the van? And he said, and I'll just take a little, I'll just take a few days off and take my wife to vacation in El Salvador. I was like, El Salvador is nice, but I mean, Nomotu's probably a little nicer. He's like, no, don't worry about it. It's like, so of course in the back of my mind, I'm like, you're going to go to Nomotu at some point. Maybe not this year, but you're going to go to Nomotu next year or the year after. Anyway, so he buys this van. And immediately, like literally, he'd been scouting this van for months. And I sent him the money. He bought the van, and literally the next day, he sends me pictures of videos of like 14 kids packed into this van doing a tour of the Channel Islands factory in Costa Rica. And then they gave him all these boards, and he left with like 25 boards on the roof. And anyway, so you can see the transformative power of what may seem like a small amount of money to an organization like this. So we want to replicate that type of thing over and over again. We want to do more of it, like more money, more people, more Nomotu trips. Like I said, the operative word here, our theme is just more.
I love that. We know that Eddie from Me Water Foundation did that too in San Francisco, does that too in San Francisco. Although we love that. Eddie was with us in 2019, and he shares, he's driving around in a white van picking up children in our city. We're all like, that is so inspiring. So real quick, by a show of hands, does anybody know anybody right now that they know they would nominate based on that criteria? Okay.
All of you know at least 10 people
that
you could nominate. You can't nominate yourself, but you can definitely tell one of your friends to nominate you. There's no shame in it.
Absolutely. So we know a little bit about the winners, how they get there. So tell us a little bit about the judges. How did you choose the judges? It's not a consolation prize. I definitely won. I won way more than anything. So tell us a little bit about the judges. So these people know who they're up against.
So we've got a beautifully diverse group of judges, and I think that's the key. They come from different places, and they represent different areas and people and thinking, and I think that's amazing. So our judges at the moment, we had Kyron Rathbone, who was the chairman, who's been involved for a long time, and he's been one of the judges. He's still part of the Aloha Awards, but he stepped down as chairman, and I've taken over that role. And then we have Jesse Richmond, who's a world champion kiteboarder, who's based in Hawaii, and he's traveled the world. He has a special needs child as well. So from that side, he has that understanding, which is very important. And the nice thing about him is he's also traveled the world and spent time in not only first world countries, but third world countries. So it gives him a great base to come from. We've also got our past winner, Kris Dennis, who is now on as a judge. And we always want to have a past winner because they are an inspiration and understand the whole process. And this year we brought on Brisa Hennessy, who's on the World Surf League, on the tour, and she's going to be an amazing lady representative, but also, she can reach and help us reach people we might not be able to reach as easily, and hopefully she can amplify what the Aloha Awards are doing and take it to more of the professional side. And maybe also we want to, we have already spoken to the WSL, and they are very happy to walk this path with us. And I think it's something else they should be doing, is recognizing the people who are doing good within the global surfing community. And then, of course, we have our new and our amazing Kris. as our new judge, and she's going to obviously, she's got a background. She's got a background in surf therapy and working with all of you, and she's going to help us and steer us as a group. Get ready, Kris, and allow us to grow this thing. And as Mark alluded to earlier, we've had lots of nominations, but often from the same places. Different people, but often from the same areas. And we are now going to reach further. And with 135 members around the globe, which is absolutely phenomenal, how many more surf therapy startups and organizations are there? That there's probably another 135, and those are the ones we want to also get to. But this is going to allow us to reach and get nominations from all over the world, in Asia, in Europe. It's going to make it incredibly hard for us. And Kris, you are going to go through an emotional roller coaster with us. But with this fine gentleman here, and with the amazing ideas and the backing, and hopefully some more corporate sponsors, and we can grow this thing to not only help those 5 or 10 winners, but all the nominees that are going to be able to come onto some sort of platform in the future and network with us and learn and get the building blocks that Isto and Aloha are going to create, that's going to allow them to understand how to build a website for the first time, how to apply for a grant, how to speak to their local government, and then just someone to speak to, someone who's walked that path. And I'm going to go off topic.
Well, no, let me
I'll
interrupt.
stop right there, because there is a little whip behind her back.
Yeah. Well, I am going to interrupt real quick, because I do want to talk about, very quickly, a lot of us are grant writers in the room. They're time-consuming. They're not fun. The follow-up is not great. So tell us about the complexities of nominating people. How hard is this? How much time is this going to take us? And also, what are the dates of the nominations?
Okay, so the nomination period is open 1st of October. And you're going to see a lot more in the press, in the social media. We're going to really amplify this now. And it goes right through to the 28th of February. So we got lots of time to nominate people from anywhere. And it doesn't have to be an organization. It doesn't have to be someone that's well known. We are looking for those individuals that are just doing good, that are showing the Aloha spirit. Because those are the little, for want of a better metaphor, those are the little turtles that are going to turn into a giant turtle one day if we save them right down there and we help them grow. And that whole ripple effect thing from Sean Thompson last night and turning them into waves, this is going to amplify and grow incredibly with all of our help. And the more nominations we get, the more people we're going to help. And the process of nominations and the judging. Did you want that now as well?
How do I nominate?
So you go onto the website, the alohaaward.com, and there you just click on the nominate, and you fill in the short form. You tell us about that person, and that goes through. It registers them as a nominee, and we then at the end of the nomination period, we as the judges go through lists and lists of people. And we categorize them into groups. We then eventually whittle them down to the top 5 through a voting process. And then we actually interview each judge. Each judge interviews a nominee, one of the 5 nominees, and we record it. And we all listen to it. And we ask some very pertinent questions about them, about what they're going to do with their money, what this will do for them as a person, what it will do for their organization. And we get into the nitty-gritty of choosing the top 5, and all of the top 5s. The winner gets $10,000 towards their organization, which
for now,
and that for now, and the others down to the top 5, they get $5,000, $2,500 for the 3 runners up, and then they're going to fall into our network, and we're going to grow this network, and that's how this thing is going to just multiply.
How many people can one person nominate?
There's no limit on the number of nominations that you can submit, firstly. Secondly, just going back to your question on the judging panel, that's why it's so important for us to have a knowledgeable, well-connected judging panel, because our judges help vet these individuals. So to the extent that we've got most of our judges are so well-connected that they're only 1 degree of separation from anybody that's being nominated. Even Mike Castro, who's operating in this very small town in Limon, Costa Rica. Kris Dennis knew him very, very well. They'd done a program together, actually, at Waves for Change. And Kris, I remember Kris calling me up and saying, Mike is amazing. Do you know that he actually turned half of his house into his personal residence into a clubhouse for the kids? And I was like, if that doesn't tell you what you need to know about the quality of this human being, what will? So those types of little tidbits that come from the judges are really essential to the judging process, which, as Greg mentioned, is one of the hardest, most inspiring, but one of the hardest jobs on the planet.
I hope everyone is as excited as we were to learn about the Aloha Award. I was nominated by a few people, and that is how I found out. And I hope everyone in this room, this is part of the more mentality, is we have the ability to reach so many people, and we know so many people. So if you can't get a hold of me, it's because I'm busy nominating people. No, actually, can I nominate as a judge? I don't even know the rules. That being said, really the Stoke is about these two generous, incredible human beings, and using your time and your talent and your treasure to make the world a better place in the interest of time. Before we pop into some questions quickly from the audience. And also, by the way, right after this is lunch. So if you need these two extraordinary humans, you've got them for lunch. Lastly, just one more exciting piece of information I was wondering if you could maybe mention.
Sure. Yeah, we're extremely excited to announce to you guys all here today that we will be entering into a joint venture actually with ISTO. So ISTO is going to become the legal sponsor of the Aloha Award. And we're going to be collaborating with ISTO. Hopefully collaboration ends up being an understatement. But we're going to be collaborating with ISTO to really get to the bottom of that question that I posed to you earlier, which is, what can we do to help small organizations like yours scale? What are the support services that you need? So like I said, it's a two-step process. Actually three-step. One is listen and learn. The second step is develop either the internal capability to be able to provide those services, or contract with third-party providers that can help us provide those services, and then execute. So we are planning on doing that in collaboration with ISTO, but ISTO is not just Kris, it's all of you. So we feel like we're joint venturing really with all of you to help scale and roll this program out. So we'll count on you if you get random calls from us, you'll know why.
I can't say thank you enough. So here's to the work that we have all done yesterday, the work we're still doing, and the work I hope continues far after we are gone. And a lot of this collaborating and connecting, ISTO started with that mindset of go far, go together. We mean that, and we are quite literally living that through partnerships with incredible humans like yourself. Thank you for being here. Do we have any questions? I know we're going to lunch, so if you guys really have a question, definitely can find it. But if there's some immediate, we have like 5 minutes. Any questions? Who's going to go home and nominate someone? You!
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
All right, well then let's get lunch. So find Mark and Greg. They're here all day. Yeah. Yes, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, real quick.